Hello ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to an all-new championship here on iRacing. That's right, it's the first two rounds of the VBTCR Championship. Of course, the first season for the drivers to get used to the cars. The first season of potentially many more. You join myself, Jack Werrell, in the commentary box, not only for tonight's action, but for the rest of the season to come as well. We are here for the first two races, two 20-minute races here at Donington Park, the GP layout in use this evening, so we've got lots to look forward to. Donington Park, of course, no stranger to motorsport. It holds the Quick Fit British Touring Car Championship, the British Superbike Championship, the World Superbike Championship, and of course the Intelligent Money British GT Championship, just to name a few. It's played host to the FIA Formula One World Championship a few decades ago, but I've got to say it was a brilliant spectacle when it was there. It was one of the first permanent tracks in England, initially opened in 1931, reopened in 1977, and now it is here to stay. The Audi RS3 LMS TCR will be being used not only tonight but throughout the season as well, a car famed for its proximity to close racing, and qualifying was no different. This is how they line up for the first race of the season. It is Moraine Assert asserting himself on to pole position, a 1 minute 37.608 his pole time, alongside his Impulse Racing teammate Chris Ems, just 87 thousandths away. Then it is Terry Flatten with Dan Mould alongside the first of the evening motorsport cars. Then it's Michael Seal for BSR with Neil Butler in 6th place. 7th and 8th is Andreas Gilman and John Simons. Then it's Dennis Ronsdorf, Ben Denyer, Neil Stevenson and Christopher Smith in 12th place. That is how the first 6 rows of the grid line up for the first race of the season. The next 6 rows are as follows. So it's Shane Dunn for Spud Motorsport in 13th, followed then by Erwin van den Berg. Then it's Jack Johnson, Scott Malcolm. Then we get back to Craig Walters and Bastian Fuchs. Then it's Ryan Empringham, Andrew Lovesey, Derek Crowther, Fraser Garrity, Mark McCabe and Jack Newell. Derek Crowther and Fraser Garrity, both teammates at Insignia Racing, both incredibly experienced in these Audi RS3, so keep an eye on them, not only through tonight's races, but throughout the rest of the season as well. We've got a lot of drivers returning to the Audi TCR, a few of them racing in various other leagues on iRacing as well. Then we get back to the next 6 rows. It's Philip Mahon alongside Dave Christie. Then it's Alfie McCarthy, Nick Kent, Tom Holland, Leon Gramus, Dom Cottenham, followed then by Dan Thornton, William Martin, Fiona Siddons, John Johnston and James Birch, rounding out your 36-strong car grid this evening. So a very strong showing for the first round of the season, so much so that they can't fit them all on the grid. They've had to put them round the final corner, the final hairpin, just to make sure everybody can get onto the grid. So keep an eye out for that, as race 1 is very shortly getting underway. So the lights are on now for the first time this season. In a few moments' time they will extinguish, and the first race of the VBTCR Championship is away. It's an okay start from Moraine Assert, not a great start from Chris Ems. It looks like Terry Flatten, who's already pushing for the lead, looking around the outside. Can he get the move done? Later on the brakes, just about manages to split the Impulse Racing teammates. There's a car in the background going sideways in towards the gravel. I think that could have potentially been Neil Butler that got caught out in that one. You can see it's all nose to tail as we head down the hill for the first time in towards the old hairpin. Nose to tail for the lead. Moraine Assert still somehow holding on to the lead. Terry Flatten got a great run through the old hairpin, looking round towards the outside. It will be the outside for the next left-hander as well. And in a few moments' time, hard on the brakes, who will come out on top? It looks like Terry Flatten will get that move done up. The inside does grab the apex, but look at that superior momentum around the outside. Moraine Assert, can he continue on in the lead? Dan Mould getting in on the mix as well, looking up the inside. There's contact in the background, and Terry Flatten in towards the gravel and potentially in towards the wall. Riding on board with Dan Mould, we saw him work his way up the inside. Was that contact with Chris Ems? It looked like it initially. So heading into Surtees, and I think potentially 2 cars going for the same piece of tarmac there. Dan Mould, he turned in as early as he could, but of course if you turn in too early you do pick up a slowdown here on iRacing. Back to the battles, however. Shane Dunn is slowly coming under pressure from Ben Denyer, but does manage to, I think, potentially make that place. So Shane Dunn up into 8th place, Ben Denyer losing out. Chris Smith just sat behind. Here is Jack Johns applying the pressure on Derek Crowther as we continue on through this opening lap of the season. There's lots of action in the background. Alfie McGarrity losing out to Bastian Fuchs, and Leon Gramus losing out to Bastian Fuchs as well. It's been a great first lap from himself in regards to working his way back up through the order. He lost a few at the start of the lap, but he's slowly carving his way back through. Can't really ask for much more if you've lost a few places on the start. Dennis Ronsdorf with the fastest lap of the race, or 1 minute 41.419. Not necessarily representative of race pace, but he is pushing forward nonetheless. Here is Erwin van den Berg on the outside. Craig Walters looking to the inside, heading in towards Redgate now. That's very quick on the entry from Erin van den Berg, and over the gravel he goes, in towards the grass. Does manage to rejoin the circuit just about, but then loses another place to Ryan Empringham. Here is Derek Crowther with Jack Johns alongside, almost heading down the hill once again. Is Jack Johns on the outside? Is he going to get the move done? He'll have to be much later on the brakes. He might be able to carry that superior momentum around the outside. There's no contact between the pair of them. Jack Johns using all the circuit he has available to him. Up the road here is Erin van den Berg, recovering from that earlier incident, trying to get past Fraser Garrity, looking back at Jack Newell and Andrew Lovesey, almost making contact. Heading through the right-hander we go. Jack Newell goes slightly deep, and it looks like Andrew Lovesey tried to force the door open. Jack Johns getting in on this. Derek Crowther having just lost out to Jack. He's all over the tail, and that's great stuff from Jack Johns at the inside of Andrew Lovesey. So having just made one position, he's already made another. He'll have to be careful on the brakes heading in towards the chicane for the second time. So, of course, Andrew Lovesey will have the draft assistance right the way down, jinks out towards the right-hand side. Both cars brake at a similar point. Jack Johns, of course, with that inside. Derek Crowther, I think, almost lost out to Bastian Fuss there. So, while there's still lots of chopping and changing in the order, there is the recovering Terje Flaten. Of course, Terje getting caught out with a little bit of contact up the road. There's contact further in towards the hairpin. There is Derek Crowther. Let's have another look back to see what happened there. Leon Gramus, and that is the number 75 machine. That's Bastian Fuss making a little bit of contact, and more contact on the exit as well. I think that could be Ryan Empringham that got caught up in that one. But a fastest lap of the race from Dan Mould, the only driver into the 37s at the moment, a 1:37.875. You can see there Alfie McGarrity under pressure from Nick Kent under pressure from Alfie McGarrity, who's got Mark McCabe all over his tail as well. So they're side by side as they cross the line. Alfie McGarrity just about managing to make that move before turn one. There's contact between the pair of them. Alfie McGarrity goes towards the wall. Mark McCabe left with very little room, I think, there. And down the order goes Alfie McGarrity, waits for the train to go by and rejoins White's way down the order. There is Erin van den Berg through the old hairpin side by side as we look further back. Jack Johns under pressure from Leon Gramus, who has got Bastian Fuss just behind, waiting in the wings to see if anything happens. It's still Moraine Asser leading the way, but it's all going on in the background. Now you can see Nick Kent is doing what he can to work his way past Mark McCabe. He can't afford to lose too much time because Dave Christie making his intentions known all over the rear bumper, still pushing forward. Only 5 minutes of the race remaining, and we've got all this to go again a little later on for the second race of the evening. But Nick Kent really starting to push forward. There is John Simons under pressure from Chris Ems. He lost a little bit of time due to that contact with Dan Mould. Lost a couple of positions as well. He's trying to work his way back in towards the top four. But John Simons driving a very, very wide Ignium Motorsport Audi RS3. So heading towards the final corner. They remain nose to tail. Definitely calmed down since we last saw them. But something that hasn't calmed down is this battle further back. Nick Kent has managed to just about gap the cars behind. Great move from, I think that was Leon Gramus, just about prying the door open on Dave Christie. Nick Kent has managed to work his way in between them. Derek Crowther sat there trying to pick off any scraps. Neil Butler just in the background as well. Of course, involved in that contact on lap one that ended with him in the gravel. He did rejoin and he's on a charge back up through the order. Crossing the line now, it's Dave Christie and Nick Kent still nose to tail as we head in towards Redgate once again. Are we going to see a change of position just up the road? I think that's Terje Flaten recovering through the order, potentially making another move. There is Bastian Fuss losing out to Terje Flaten. If he's not careful, down the hill we go in towards the old hairpin. Terje Flaten on the inside, later on the brakes, almost contact between the pair of them. But Terje Flaten does get another place, up into 20th, so still recovering from that earlier incident. Bastian Fuss losing yet another place because Leon Gramus has managed to work his way in front. Nick Kent sat just behind. Then we've got the train led by Dave Christie. And in towards the wall goes Leon Gramus. What happened there? Was there contact between himself and another driver, or did he just get elbowed onto the grass? Hopefully we'll be able to get a replay of that in just a few moments' time. Sideways over the crest goes David Christie. That's going to really hamper his performance on towards the back straight. Derek Crowther has already got by. Neil Butler all over his tail trying to follow suit. In towards the chicane we go, almost three wide. That's Neil Butler and Dave Christie going the same way, so that really hampered both of them. You can see Derek Crowther opening that gap. There's contact in the background. Dave Christie pushing Neil Butler. And I can't really apportion blame onto either driver. Dave Christie has lifted off to let Neil Butler by, so I think potentially felt that he was at fault there. John Simon still fending off the attentions of Chris Ems behind. A big look up the inside in towards Redgate. John Simons, he does manage to carry the superior momentum in, but the drive on the exit might not go his way because Chris Ems will have the inside for the next right-hander. Down the hill we go. John Simons will then get the apex for the left-hander, but in towards the old hairpin. By the time we get there, they're no longer side-by-side. Lead gap 1.3 seconds separating Moraine Assert and Dan Mould. This battle still nose to tail. So the battle for the lead is between Impulse and Ignium. And the battle we're looking at the moment was Impulse and Ignium. Here is Ben Denyer looking to work his way past Shane Dunn. A big dive up to the inside. He will grab the apex, but as we've already seen, the outside can help that momentum. Shane Dunn, he'll have to go the long way round once again, heading on towards the back straight. Is he going to do it? I think he might actually. Great stuff from Shane Dunn. Somehow managed to keep that momentum. Has managed to get the place back off Ben Denyer. Chris Smith just sat behind as well. Scott Malcolm, don't rule him out of this battle because he's sat behind this sparring trio, hoping to maybe pick up a few places. Through the chicane we go. Shane Dunn definitely position secure now, but Ben Denyer does get a better run through the chicane. Down towards the hairpin we go once again. Are we going to see a change of position? A very late move from Ben Denyer. Does get the car slowed down. Shane Dunn looks for the cutback, but he can't really cut in too tight because Chris Smith is there. Scott Malcolm really closing up. It's evolved from a trio to somewhat of a quartet now, all vying over 8th place. Through the final corner we go. Dan Mould, a personal fastest lap of the race, a 1:37.768. Still the fastest driver out on circuit. Neil Butler and Neil Stevenson side by side. James Birch just up the road as well. Heading in towards the final corner once again. Neil Butler, he's got attack and defence to think about. A little look up the inside there from the latter of the two Neils. On the exit of the final corner, they're still somewhat evenly matched. James Birch will have this all going on in his rearview mirror. He's got to decide what he's going to do about that. But here is Chris Smith, still under pressure from Scott Malcolm behind, whilst also trying to attack Shane Dunn up the road, who is just about clasped onto the coattails of Ben Denyer. But Ben, now in that clean air, still pushing forward, trying to make good his escape. You can see Scott Malcolm didn't get the greatest run through the old hairpin, which has allowed Shane Dunn to just about pull away from Chris Smith. But they're still definitely within fighting distance. Through Surtees we go, towards the back straight. And Ben Denyer slowly building a bit of breathing room to himself and the trio behind. There is Andrew Lovesey and Jack Johns, still nose to tail. We saw the change of position a few laps ago, halfway through the race now, and Jack Johns still managing to fend off the attention of Andy Lovesey. He's looking to the inside. He's going to have to be really late on the brakes to get it done there. Does decide to brake earlier, not compromise his line, and then get ready for another attack. He can't hang around too much. Jack Newell just sat behind in 18th place, bringing with him Mark McCabe. Taria Flaherty has just managed to pick off Mark McCabe, in fact. Heading in towards the hairpin, Jack Johns cuts over to the inside. A little bit of contact between himself and Andrew Lovesey. Dan Mould fastest lap of the race once again, a 1:37.563. But Jack Johns, after a little bit of a nudge, proper touring car racing this. Bit of nose-to-tail contact, but nobody really lost any time out of it. Andy Lovesey, a very, very slidey moment through the final corner. That will massively affect his momentum onto the start-finish straight. You can see that Jack Newell was slowly reeling in Andy Lovesey. Back to this battle, however. Scott Malcolm definitely in touching distance of Shane Dunn. Chris Smith as well, still heading that trio. Ben Denyer has definitely made good his escape now. In the background, Ryan Empringham, the second of the Spud Motorsport drivers, doing what he can to try and get past Craig Walters. Craig has got it all to do because his rearview mirror will be full of Ryan Empringham. Up the road there side by side once again. I think that's Scott Malcolm and Shane Dunn still vying over that position. But Craig Walters definitely secure as it stands. We're not seeing any rash moves from Empringham behind. There is Taria Flaherty still making amends for the earlier incident through no fault of his own. I think he was more or less the innocent party. Up the inside of Derek Crowther goes Neil Butler. And also in on this battle is Nick Kent, just up the road in the Tom Ingram Ginsters liveried machine. Derek Crowther losing yet another place. He's lost 3 places from where he started. Biggest mover in the field is Jack Birch. Or James Birch, pardon me. 11 places gained from where he started. Through the chicane we go. And Nick Kent losing time to Neil Butler now. Slowly reeling him in is Neil. Getting closer and closer and closer together. And are we going to see him moving towards the hairpin? No, not as yet, but very late on the brakes is Neil Butler. He'll lose stacks of time. He will be able to get on the throttle slightly earlier, however. Very even on the exit. But as Neil Butler picked up full boost slightly earlier, it does mean he can accelerate his way out of the corner to slightly greater effect than Nick Kent. Looking off the tail end of Nick Kent, pardon me, Neil Butler's in that full send racing machine. Derek Crowther just sat behind. So Nick Kent still managing to fend off any attentions. And Nick, with that slight mistake in towards the hairpin, that has given him a taste of what can happen after just a slight mistake. Outbrake yourself by just a couple of metres, and it will mean that there will be a car all over your tail, and potentially in a couple of laps' time we will see a change of position here, because Neil Butler really closing up now, and up the inside he goes at the old hairpin. Great stuff from Neil Butler, committed move, but Nick Kent did what he could to hold on to that position. Couldn't quite carry the momentum through the corner. He's got to be careful not to lose another. Derek Crowther still sat there just behind, nose to tail, as we head through the right-hander once again. Cutting across the nose of Derek Crowther is Nick Kent, making sure he makes his defence as assertive as possible. Over the grass was the number 12 Kinster's machine there, so really starting to feel the pressure, I think, is Nick Kent. You can see Neil Butler is making the most of the distraction behind, just allowing him to work his way forward. Shane Dunn and Scott Malcolm still battling away, almost contact between the pair of them. Are we going to see door-to-door contact? No, but in towards the final corner we go. They're still side by side just about. On the brakes, who's going to be braver? Scott Malcolm looks for the cutback, so later on the brakes uses as much road as he can. He's got to be careful though not to run wide. He does that now, so that will really affect his momentum, as he will lose traction on that very slippery grass. Terry Flarton, the next target for him will be Jack Johns. Here is Mark McCabe all over the tail end of Jack Newell. Andy Lovesey in the pit lane, crossing the line once again. Almost 14 minutes of the race completed, so only 6 minutes of the race remaining. Mark McCabe still trying to pick off Jack Newell. Mark McCabe up 4, Jack Newell up 6, so both drivers improving from their starting position and hoping to make yet further improvements is Mark McCabe. On board we go, down the hill in towards the old hairpin. There's still nose to tail, a little flick of oversteer there from Mark McCabe. Couldn't quite keep the rear end in check, that's lost him a couple of tenths as we head back up through the hill. Lots of elevation change here at Donington Park, and up the road you can see there, that's Fraser Garrity almost losing out to Jack Johns as we head up towards Surtees and on towards the back straight. Taria Flarton just sat behind as well, so if anything kicks off between the pair in front, he will have 2 places there for the taking. Pulling out towards the right hand side, we could see a change of position here between Jack Johns and Taria Flarton. That will be music to the ears of Fraser Garrity, because he will be more than happy to let the duo behind battle away and lose a bit of time, but they do remain as they are. Jack Johns still ahead of Taria Flarton. Looking back now from Fraser Garrity, you can see Jack Johns looking to the inside. Is he going to get the move done? Potentially. He's still on the inside. They're still side by side. Taria Flarton just really a spectator at this point. Splitting the pair of them is Jack Johns. So Jack up towards the inside, later on the brakes, almost contact with the car behind. They're still side by side. Jack Johns and Fraser Garrity somehow not making contact. Taria Flarton furious that he can't get by, desperate to lose as little time as possible. In towards turn 1 we go. Jack Johns on the outside, got to be careful not to run too wide. Taria Flarton almost making contact with the tail end of him. Fraser Garrity just about holding on to that place. There's almost contact. There is contact between Flarton and Johns. Very well driven from Jack Johns. Is he going to get it slowed down before he rejoins? Just about. But unfortunate contact between the pair of them. Let's ride on board to see Jack Johns' point of view. Contact, and then there's the slightly bigger knock which threw him off the road. Very, very well controlled from Jack. Does manage to get the moment collected up, desperately gets it slowed down. He may end up with a slowdown penalty as well, of course, because if you cut the track it's unfair to gain an advantage from it. Back live we go, and Jack Johns, you can see how much time he's lost because he was splitting the pair of them, and that gap has definitely dissipated. A big look up the inside, yet more contact between Taria Flarton and another driver. This time it's Fraser Garrity's go to get his elbows out, trying to defend from the Norwegian. But Taria Flarton, another position made, up into 15th place, desperate to make up places after the lap 1 incident up the road. Ryan Empringham under ever-increasing pressure from Erwin van den Berg. Through the chicane we go. Ryan's still the lead car in this battle. Down towards the GP loop we go, in towards the hairpin. Downhill braking zone. It's so difficult to pick out a braking zone. But Erwin van den Berg has got to settle behind for the moment. We are running out of time in this race, just 3.5 minutes remaining. Erwin van den Berg will be desperate to get by the car in front. He's started in 14th, still currently in 14th place, so you can't really complain. Hasn't gone forward, but more importantly has not gone backward. Jack Johns has managed to get past Fraser Geraghty, presumably at the GP hairpin. Back to this battle, however. It's Derek Crowther, still under pressure from Neil Stevenson. James Birch doesn't get the best run out of the final corner, which does allow Derek Crowther to work his way by. Neil Stevenson looking to do the same. In towards turn 1, it's James Birch and Derek Crowther side by side. All the way around the outside goes Derek Crowther. He's going to be careful not to run wide. Great move from Mr. Crowther. Got the car slowed down, got it turned in, got the position made. So up into 22nd place now for Derek Crowther. Got a little bit of traffic up the road in the way of Leon Gramus. James Birch losing yet another position. Neil Stevenson looking to make up places after he's lost 13 from where he started. James Birch gaining 13, so the pair of them pretty much swapping roles and meeting their way in the middle. So Derek Crowther will have to try and make good his escape. Very sideways on the exit there for Neil Stevenson, really pushing the limits of not only the car but the circuit as well. Track limits, you've got to be so careful of them. But Derek Crowther has still got a rear view mirror full of James Birch. James pulls out towards the right hand side. He's got to be keeping one eye on his rear view mirror and one eye on Derek Crowther. In towards the chicane we go. Who's going to be later on the brakes? It is Derek Crowther, and a big look up the inside there from Neil Stevenson, but couldn't quite get the move done. He tried to force it, but it didn't happen. Here is Bastien Fus, still chasing down Fraser Geraghty. Jack Newell only 3 tenths behind, so we could see a change of position there. Ryan Empringham still somehow in front of Erwin van den Berg. They were side by side last time we looked at them. They're still side by side now. Neil Stevenson has managed to get past James Birch. The battle we're looking at, a great cutback there from Erwin van den Berg. He had a big look up the inside on the exit of Redgate. There's still nose to tail. Somehow Ryan Empringham remains in 13th place with Erwin van den Berg just sat behind. You can see the gap ebbing and flowing on the left hand side of your screen. Into the corner it opens up, out of the corner it closes up. Up the hill we go once again. A look to the inside from Erwin van den Berg. We know the outside can work for the next right-hander. You can carry some really good momentum around the outside. He gives it a go. And Erwin van den Berg all the way around the outside has got it done. So up into 13th place for Erwin there. Ryan Empringham losing out. Spud Motorsport 33 machine still up 5 places from where he started. Bastien Fus losing a few places, potentially a slight mistake there. There is Maureen Asset going on to the final lap of the race in a few moments' time. Dan Mould has been there or thereabouts throughout the entire race, but still 1.9 best part of, or 1.8 best part of 1.9 seconds as they cross the line for the penultimate time. And in the background we are seeing yet more battles. Neil Butler looking to the inside now of Mark McCabe. Down in towards the hairpin we go. They're still side by side. Who's going to get the move done? Neil Butler elbowing the door open. Position made. Mark McCabe dropping down into 20th place now. Got a few cars up the road. One of them being Fraser Geraghty, I think. Still looking at this battle is John Simons. He lost 5th place to Chris Ems a few laps ago, and he's under pressure of losing 6th from Dennis Ronsdorf. Dennis, a big look up the inside, almost contact between the pair of them. Through the old hairpin we go, up the hill, and they're still almost side by side. Dennis Ronsdorf has been more or less hung out to dry there. Then looks for the outside, a quick peek to the inside, still nose to tail. Scott Malcolm has managed to get past Shane Dunn for 10th place. So up the hill and over the crest once again for what will be the final time from that battle. Shane Dunn losing out to Craig Walters. Craig all the way around the outside. Is he going to get that position secure? They're still side by side. Shane Dunn reeling his way back up the inside over the crest and is still just about in front. Great defence from Shane Dunn. Craig Walters desperate to get that position back, but it brings me great pleasure to announce your first winner of the season. Maureen Asser round the final corner. A brilliant drive, very well controlled race. Wins the first round of the VBTCR Championship here from Donington Park. Dan Mould crosses the line to finish second. And in a few moments' time, we will see Andreas Gilman cross the line to take third place. There he is, crossing the line now. We've still got battles going on the circuit. However, Tom Holland looking to pick up maybe a final consolation position ahead of Dave Cottenham. But through the final corner comes Shane Dunn, still with Craig Walters in tow. But Shane Dunn will cross the line to finish in 11th place. Craig Walters just about hanging on to 12th with Owen van den Berg behind. And Ryan Empringham will cross the line in 14th place. Side by side through the GP hairpin we go. Nick Kent on the inside. Neil Stevenson on what was the outside. The battle for 22nd place still far from over. Flash of the lights there from Nick Kent in a desperate attempt to distract Neil Stevenson. Bostian Fuse was just about catching on to that battle as we cross the line. Then followed by Philip Mamon and then James Birch. So the first race of the season was a very, very close race indeed. We didn't really expect anything less from these Audi TCR LMS cars. Of course, the RS3 going off the TCR rules and regulations and fits in with all the legislations to fit under the TCR class, and it is just a recipe for really close motorsport. This is how they finished for the first time this season. Moraine Asser, well and truly well driven from the Impulse Racing driver, 2.1 seconds clear of Dan Mould and Ignium Motorsport. Andreas Gilman, the second of the Impulse Racing machines, finished in third place. Then it's Michael Seal and Chris Ems, who didn't really have the greatest of races, if I'm honest. Didn't get a great start, a bit of contact with Dan Mould, and he was left with a race of recovery, really, up to 5th place. So not too bad from Chris Ems, good points as well. Then it's John Simons, Dennis Ronsdorf, Christopher Smith, Ben Denyer, Scott Malcolm, Shane Dunn, as well as Craig Walters, Owen van den Berg, Ryan Empringham, Taria Flatten, Jack Johns, Jack Newell, Neil Butler, Mark McCabe, Fraser Garrity, Derek Crowther, Neil Stevenson, Nick Kent and Bostian Fuse crossing the line somewhat nose to tail, then followed by James Birch, Dom Cottenham, Tom Holland, William Martin, Alfie McCarity, Dan Thornton, Fiona Siddons, John Johnston, Leon Gramus, and then the two retirees being Andrew Lovesey and Dave Christie. Such a shame we've had retirements in the first race of the season, both retiring 7 laps from the checkered flag. But the first race of the season couldn't really be any closer. So with yet more action on the way, another 20-minute heat race and still plenty of door-to-door battles to commence. Quick look over of the car. The Audi RS3 LMS TCR car produces around about 350 brake horsepower and 420 Newton meters of torque are emitted from their inline 4 turbo engine. So a very quick car indeed, propelling the cars to a top speed of 150 mile an hour. So the perfect recipe for some really close racing. The rest of the season is as follows. Rounds 3 and 4 at Brands Hatch, the Indy Circuit. Rounds 5 and 6 at Silverstone on the Grand Prix Loop. Then we head over the pond, over the world in fact. Rounds 7 and 8 at Oran Park in Australia. Then we head back to the UK for rounds 9 and 10 at Alton Park on the International Loop without the Hislop chicane, I might add. Rounds 11 and 12, the Snetterton 300 circuit. Then rounds 13 and 14, the Joker round that has been applied. So that will be down to the drivers and, of course, yourselves, down to a public vote to decide where that round will be held. And much like the Quick Fit British Touring Car Championship, rounds 15 and 16, the final rounds of the season, will be held down in Kent at Brands Hatch, the second visit to Brands Hatch of the season on the GP Loop. So race 2 in a few moments time will be getting underway. It's go now. It's Leon Gramus on pole position, John Johnston alongside, but John Johnston propels himself straight into the lead. Great stuff from John. He will have to fend off any attentions around the outside, but he's well and truly safe by the time he arrives at turn 1. Alfie McCarity running out of road. He's in the middle. Very wide goes John Johnston, losing out immediately. There's lots of contact in the background. The number 55 machine sideways in the road. That's Derek Crowther, as well as I think one of the other Ignium Motorsport cars sat sideways in the road. Bostian Fuse into 4th place, but Leon Gramus leading the way now with Alfie McCarity just sat behind. Then it's James Birch alongside Bostian Fuse. So up the hill we go. They're nose to tail as well with Alfie McCarity, so this will be really good looking in the rearview mirror for Leon Gramus. Just seeing how that lead gap extends. Bostian Fuse all the way around the outside as there's contact on the inside between Alfie McCarity and James Birch. Bostian Fuse will have the outside for Surtees once again. There is Andreas Gilman, followed by Dan Mould and Chris Ems. Dom Cottenham off the road to the left-hand side, rejoins as safely as possible. Here is Dan Thornton right in on the mix. Fiona Siddons just sat alongside, but Neil Stevenson does manage to work his way up into 6th place, has a little look at 5th. They're side by side through the chicane, and Neil Stevenson just about in 5th place, but look at that, Neil Butler right the way through the middle, splitting the pack and working his way into 6th place. Jack Johns getting in on it as well. So the same names from race 1 working their way into race 2 as well. Fiona Siddons slowly dropping back. With all the cars behind, it doesn't massively surprise me because it's such a close championship. You can gain 5 places one lap, lose five places the next. It's Leon Gramus leading the way, but Shane Dunn down in 20th place under pressure from losing a place from Dennis Ronsdorf. Scott Malcolm just about there as well. And you can see Shane Dunn lost that place to Dennis Ronsdorf and lost the place to Scott Malcolm as well. Chris Ems looking to pick up a place as well. Alfie McCarthy under pressure from, not really under pressure from the cars behind, but it is Bostian Fuse under pressure. I think that is in fact Alfie McCarthy with James Birch alongside now. Down the hill we go through the old hairpin, and it's Alfie McCarthy just about in 3rd place. Well, it would be if he didn't outbrake himself. So unlucky, easy mistake to make, downhill braking zone. We've all done it, and Neil Butler now comes through to inherit 4th place and take the place of Alfie McCarthy in the attack of James Birch. Jack Johns in 5th place. Good start from Jack, looking to pick up a few championship points. I think that's one of the Simortal cars in the background. Towards the wall goes one of the cars. I don't think it was Chris Ems. It could have potentially been Scott Malcolm that found himself heading towards the wall. Shane Dunn, however, in 20th place now. He's got a lot of quick drivers behind in the way of John Simons, Dan Mould, Chris Ems and Andreas Gilman. Ben Denyer just sat there as well. Fraser Garrity still following along, but the Ignium Motorsport teammates managing to remain nose to tail just about. Well, they would, because Shane Dunn has just got in on this as well, so it's pretty much the entire grid all vying for the same position. John Simons on the outside looking to defend any places while also trying to pick up a few. Shane Dunn really the sheep in this one. He's just getting bullied around. I think that was Chris Ems elbowing him through the chicane, desperate to get him pushed forward. Fastest lap of the race from Bostian Fuse, beaten by Neil Butler. We've got a car off a little further up. That could be Dan Thornton, I think, heading towards the wall as well, so potentially with a little bit of damage on that car. Ryan Empringham in the pit lane, Dan Thornton returning to the pit lane as well. So they're still nose to tail as they cross the line once again. William Martin under pressure from Dan Mulder behind. Dan, a late move up the inside. He manages to get it just about secure on the exit. John Simons tried to follow the same gap, couldn't quite do it. He's got Chris Ems on his outside. Down the hill we go once again, in towards the old hairpin. John Simons still just about holding on to 19th place. There's contact up the road, and towards the wall has gone, I think that's Will Martin. But John Simons on the outside now, doing what he can to fend off the attentions of Andreas Gilman, and just about manages to do it. Shane Dunn still following along. So John Simons chasing down his Ignium Motorsport teammate of Dan Mould. Andreas Gilman in tow. Shane Dunn just sat behind. Chris Ems, I think, oh, what a night could have been for him. Been so unfortunate. Race 1 wasn't too bad, but of course with that lap 1 contact. And we have Shane Dunn all over the tail of Andreas Gilman in towards the chicane. Is he going to brake later? No. And he's going to have to settle for 17th place, side by side in the background. That's Chris Ems and Ben Denyer, I believe. But back up towards the front we go. It's James Birch for Track Obsession, under pressure from Fiona Siddons and Mark McCabe. So up towards the final corner we go. Fiona Siddons a little look to the inside. Can't quite get the move done on the entry, but how about on the exit? She pulls towards the apex of the corner, and I think just about got on the throttle earlier and has got that position made, and through the same gap goes Nick Kent. Mark McCabe only dropping back from there. Fastest lap of the race from Dan Mould, 1 minute 39.158. So you can just about see him in the bottom of shot now, but it is still John Simons and Andreas Gilman nose to tail through Redgate once again. 5.5 minutes into this race. These races really do fly by when there's all this battling going on. Nick Kent and Mark McCabe still side by side in towards the old hairpin, almost contact between the pair of them. They're still nose to tail. James Birch trying to escape into the distance. Fiona Siddons doing what she can to leave the cars of Mark McCabe and Nick Kent behind. However, they are battling so hard, they're almost ushering each other around. But John Simons making inroads on Jack Newell, while still under pressure from Andreas Gilman, who is bringing Shane Dunn with him It's two trios at the moment. Craig Walters stuck in the middle of the one up the road. Jack Newell helping him around the Donington Park Circuit. Down the back straight once again. Fiona Siddons under pressure from Nick Kent. Nick looks towards the inside. Tries to force the mistake but can't quite get it done. Mark McCabe just up the road as well. Trying to get that position back off James Birch. Making the most of the battle behind. Letting them lose time. Very late on the brakes goes Fiona Siddons, chucks the car in, scrubs a bit of speed off and could potentially still get on the throttle earlier, and yes, does manage to remain in 10th place, just about ahead of James Birch, ahead of Nick Kent, pardon me. Has Dan Mould all over his tail, so Dan Mould finishing second in the first race. He's looking to almost get on the podium once again. So Dan Mould still pushing forward. Looking to the inside of Nick Kent in towards turn 1. Can't quite get the move done. James Birch still with Mark McCabe tucked underneath the rear wing. Then it's Fiona Siddons under pressure from Nick Kent, or at least it would have been, because Dan Mould all the way around the outside. Up into 11th place goes Dan. Nick Kent left with very little to do in the way of a return attack. James Birch still under pressure from Mark McCabe. If they keep slowing each other down, Dan Mould will pick up another 2 places, but James Birch gets a dream run through the old hairpin. Got a slow car on the right hand side, that's Mark McCabe, potentially with damage or a slowdown through the old hairpin. Craig Walters looking to the inside of Nick Kent, who has Jack Newell just about waiting in the wings, trying to get back past. Fiona Siddons almost losing a place there, in fact just about losing the place for a fraction of a second. Nick Kent had the inside for the double right-hander heading on towards the back straight. It's all go in the mid-pack. You can see now Shane Dunn trying to work his way into the battle as well. Jack Newell all the way around the outside of Andreas Gilman. Does get the position made. There's contact up the road. There is Nick Kent with Jack Newell just sat behind. John Simons door-to-door contact with him. 3 wide, almost 4 wide down towards the Grand Prix hairpin. It was never going to work. One of the Ignium Motorsport cars, I think. Impulse Racing Machine, in fact. That's Andreas Gilman heading towards the wall. Shane Dunn goes for the gap and it just closes up on him. He does lift out. You can hear the turbo fluttering away as he pulls out of the throttle, and it didn't really need to happen. Andreas Gilman, the big loser out of that, but 4 wide around anywhere is an achievement, but even more so heading in towards a very heavy braking zone. It was never really going to work. Back to the lead, however. It's Neil Butler in the lead of the race for Full Send Racing. Then it's Bostian Fuchs just behind. Splitting then second and third is the lapped car of Ryan Empringham. Jack Johns will very quickly be coming into shot in the background. There he is. But Neil Butler doing what he can to extend that lead margin. Half a second separating himself in second place. Here is Taria Fladen looking to go around the outside of Leon Gramus. And it could work, but we know how strong the outside is through this right-hander. But there's no need, because Taria Fladen up into 4th place and position well and truly secure. Chasing down now Jack Johns in 3rd place, only 1.1 seconds up the road. There is Neil Stevenson in 6th place, trying to work his way in towards the top 5. Leon Gramus under pressure already from Neil Stevenson. Here is Fiona Siddons still under pressure from Nick Kent behind. John Simons looking all the way around the outside of Nick Kent. It's the outside here, but will evolve to the inside for the chicane. It's a great run onto the back straight for Nick Kent, side by side with Fiona Siddons. We could almost be going 3 wide in towards the chicane. I think we actually are. Almost contact. I think there was contact between the pair of them. Over in front of the pack goes Nick Kent. Jack Newell left with nowhere to go. And both cars, I think, destined for the pit lane at the very least. Potentially destined for retirement. Our race 1 winner of Moraine Asser with the fastest lap of the race, a 1 minute 37.855. Taria Fladen up the road ahead of this battle we're looking at the moment. Looking back from Leon Gramus with Neil Stevenson just 3/10 back. 3rd place under pressure of Jack Johns. There is Taria Fladen just sat behind. But Leon Gramus under ever increasing pressure from Neil Stevenson behind. There goes the battle for the final step on the podium of Jack Johns and Taria Fladen. In towards the old hairpin we go. Neil Stevenson still on the coattails of Leon Gramus and on the cusp of a top 5 as well, looking to the inside up the hill. We know how strong the inside can evolve to the outside, so we'll see what Neil Stevenson can do for the Ignium Motorsport Spark machine. All the way around the outside, does give it a go, can't quite get the move done. Going defensive up the hill is Leon Gramus. Neil Stevenson just helping himself towards the rear bumper of Leon. Onto the back straight we go once again. Neil Stevenson jumps towards the right-hand side. It will be the outside for the chicane. Who's going to be later on the brakes? Is it going to be Neil Stevenson? He gives it a go, but plays it safe. Make sure he can't compromise his exit. Still loses a little bit of time to the cars in front. There is Mark McCabe on the far right-hand side of the circuit. Still trying to get past Fiona Siddons. Mark has been under ever-increasing pressure from behind to get that move done there side by side through the chicane. Is he going to get it done this time? It's an okay run on the exit from Fiona Siddons. It might just be enough to defend her place in towards the GP hairpin. But look at that, Scott Malcolm later on the brakes. He gives it a damn good go to work his way up through the inside. There's contact with Mark McCabe. They still continue on without too much of an issue. Scott Malcolm is definitely on the inside. It will become the outside for the final corner. There is Andreas Gilman in 6th place, looking to pick off one, if not 2 places. He works his way up the inside of Scott Malcolm. Scott will be on the outside. There's almost contact between the pair of them. Off the road is Fiona Siddons, trying to carry as much momentum across the line as possible. It's 2 by 2. Fiona Siddons on the inside, Scott Malcolm just about with her, but all the way around the outside goes Mark McCabe. Is he going to get the move done? Yes, he has. So Mark McCabe gets by Fiona Siddons. Andreas Gilman and Scott Malcolm still side by side as we head down the hill. Please don't be any more contact. There is the door-to-door contact. So proper touring car racing. Andreas Gilman does get that position made over Scott Malcolm. Derek Crowther had the best seats in the house for that one. Just sat watching behind. Off the road goes Andreas Gilman trying to get past Fiona Siddons. Scott Malcolm gives him ample room on the exit. So too does Fiona Siddons. But there will be a slowdown penalty. There's contact between the pair of them, and Scott Malcolm was heading towards the wall. I think with Andreas Gilman placing the car where he did, it allowed him to just about stop any further contact. And Andreas Gilman, trying to rejoin the circuit as safely as possible, made contact with Michael Seal. That's so unlucky. The innocent party coming off somewhat worse there. Back to the battles we go. Leon Gramus and Dan Mould side by side. Neil Stevenson managed to work his way past Leon Gramus. Through the GP hairpin we go. Yet more contact. That was between teammates. Dan Mould for Ignia Motorsport and Neil Stevenson for Ignia Motorsport Spark, the sister team. But in towards the final corner goes Dan Mould, still with Leon Gramus behind. Neil Stevenson sat watching along. Leon Gramus doing what he can to split the teammates. Alfie McCarthy could be the big winner out of this, but he's not too far adrift from that battle. There is Ben Denyer, slowly gaining on Jack Newell, the very damaged Jack Newell indeed, after the contact earlier on. Ben Denyer still pushing forward in 20th place, looking to make it even deeper in towards the top 20. Jack Johns having to go defensive for the final spot on the podium. That's Taria Flatten looking towards what was the inside. It will evolve to the outside, but then back to the inside. Great stuff from Taria Flatten. Jack Johns will have the outside for the left-hander. In towards the right-hander we go. Very defensive line from Jack Johns. Made sure he parks the car just at the turn-in point. Clever driving from Jack in the Pulsus Esports Audi. But through Surtees we go. They're still side by side. Jack Johns doing what he can to make the most of that inside line. They're still side by side as we head onto the back straight. A flash of the brake lights, I think, from Jack Johns. Maybe just allowing Taria Flatten to get through to allow him to pick up some draft assistance. Chucks the car over to the right-hand side. Make sure he opens the corner up as much as possible. Then re-looks to the inside. But Taria Flatten, very well driven, up into 3rd place for Luminous Racing. That number 70 machine has been on fire throughout the entire evening. A very late look up the inside from Jack Johns. Is there going to be contact? Yes, there is. The front left of Jack Johns into the left-hand door of Taria Flatten. Over towards the right-hand side, weaving around desperately to force a mistake from Jack Johns. But Jack throwing everything at it, including the kitchen sink, just trying to remain on that podium. But with 5 minutes of the race remaining, it's going the way of Taria Flatten, I'm afraid. Dan Mould in 5th place. Separating himself from Leon Gramus is Dan Thornton, down in 30th place, so the lapped car. Taria Flatten still in 3rd place and only really pulling away now. A big jump over the curb from Jack Johns. Up the inside of Derek Crowther was attempted by Fiona Siddons. Couldn't quite get the move done. Crossing the line now to tick over 3/4 of the race completed is this little battle. So Fiona working her way through Redgate corner once again. There is the bump over the curb. It seems like that curb is catching more and more people out as the race wears on. Craig Walters with John Simons just behind. Of course, Craig Walters for SRL, somewhat of a rival team with Ignia Motorsport. Friendly rivalry, if anything. But John Simons looks towards the outside. Can he carry that momentum? There's almost contact between the pair of them. That will affect the turn-in from Craig Walters. You saw him wash wide. John Simons very quickly ran out of real estate on the exit. On towards the back straight we go. It's still Craig Walters leading in this little battle. 10th place. Don't think neither driver wants it. John Simons trying to get past Craig Walters, and Craig Walters doing everything he can to avoid that 10th place. James Birch leading this battle. Shane Dunn sat there in 12th place trying to make it 11th. Got to be careful not to lose too much time, because Mark McCabe has been in every battle we've pretty much looked at this race. Mark desperate to work up into 12th place. He's keeping his fingers crossed, I think, with change of position in towards the hairpin for Craig Walters and John Simons. Back to the battle for what was 3rd place. It's very quickly evolved to 4th, because Dan Mould really starting to run on full burner now. In towards the final 3 minutes of the race we go. Having started towards the tail end of the order, Dan Mould finishing 2nd in race 1. He might just about finish on the podium if he keeps going the way he is. Up into 4th place for Ignia Motorsport. Dan Mould, great stuff. Next target for him will be Taria Flarton, some 4.2 seconds up the road, so it's a lot of time to find in the final, 3 minutes of the race. He'll have to be a second and a bit of a lap quicker. I don't think it's going to happen, but you never know. Never say never in TCR racing. Back to this battle, however. John Simons still all over the tail end of Craig Walters. Down the hill we go, in towards the old hairpin. And you can see the cars really starting to rotate with the rear as the fuel comes out and the tyres wear down. Shane Dunn still under pressure from Mark McCabe behind, but not under as much pressure as James Birch is, because Shane is really pushing forward, throwing everything at it just to try and get by in the closing stages of the race. Up towards the back straight we will go in a few moments' time. Going defensive is James Birch. You can pretty much hear, I think, the pressure that's being mounted on him. Shane Dunn with a flash of the lights, letting him know he's there, doing everything he can, every trick in the book just to try and force the mistake. Riding on board with Shane now. Has a little look to the inside, decides maybe this isn't the lap, and he's running out of time. Only, I think, 2 laps remaining at the very most. Shane Dunn gets a great run through, almost contact between himself and James Birch. It was a late move over, once again, closing the door from James Birch, so clever driving, on the cusp of being dangerous, but no contact was made, so in theory just really, really close racing. Great to see from the 2nd race of the VBTCR Championship, of course the first meeting of the season. Yet more flashing of the lights from Shane Dunn. Looks for the cutback, does carry superior momentum through the apex. It will be the outside for the final corner. They're side by side, they're rubbing doors, they're trading paint. Shane Dunn side by side into the wall, hard impact into the pit wall. And I think that could have potentially been thrown the way of James Birch. James not really leaving him much room on the exit. I know as soon as there's contact made, it's almost a pendulum effect. It's very difficult to get away with it. But they do continue on. Both cars with damage. I'm sure that will be looked at after the race by the race stewards. But Shane Dunn does manage to get 12th place after a slight knock with the pit wall. Scott Malcolm will have watched that happen, and he will be rubbing his hands together, knowing there's 40 seconds of the race remaining and still 2 positions potentially up for grabs. But Shane Dunn and James Birch, I was hoping for a clean overtake, but nothing really came of it. Shane Dunn in 12th place, pulling away from the damaged James Birch behind, and once again moving over very late from James. He's got to be careful of that. If he does continue to do that, that will slowly start to raise eyebrows throughout the paddock. But hopefully, with the race very shortly coming to an end, and the checkered flag being readied for our leader, who is coming through the final corner now. It's Neil Butler for the 2nd race of the season. For the first time for himself, Neil Butler crosses the line to take the win here at Donington Park. It will be Bostian Fuss to finish in 2nd place, crossing the line now with Taria Flarton in tow as well. And it's Dan Mould, a very well driven race, 4th place. So a 2nd and a 4th so far from Dan Mould. I think that will leave him in the championship lead. Crossing the line now, they're side by side. Jack Johns and Neil Stevenson. Neil Stevenson coming out best of the bunch, 67,000 separating 5th and 6th place. Through the final corner comes the lead, or the battle we were looking at a few moments ago, of Scott Malcolm, James Birch and Derek Crowther. Derek Crowther just over 1.5 tenths away from another position. In towards the final corner comes Chris Ems, and Chris Ems crosses the line to finish in 22nd place. Definitely was a night of what could have been for Chris. But race 2 of the championship, wow, much closer than race 1. and we've still got a full season left to go. So still lots to look forward to. Still 14 more races on the calendar, so keep an eye out for the races when they appear. Of course, it's back-to-back weeks, so you'll never really be bored with the VBTCR Championship. So still plenty to look forward to. But that is how they finished for the second time this season. It's Neil Butler who crossed the line to finish in first place, take the top step of the podium. And that means that, of course, maximum points in race 2. He does win the feature race. Bostian Fuse in second place, and Taria Flarton rounds out your podium. Then it's Dan Mould in fourth place. Very impressive opening race meeting from himself. Then it's Neil Stevenson in fifth, just about holding off Jack Johns. And then as we look down through the rest of the order, drivers that we could have potentially seen better for, of course, race 1 winner, Moraine Asser, right the way down in 25th place. Not 100% sure what happened there, but we did somewhat expect better. Chris Ems as well, down in 22nd place, just couldn't piece the race together, of course, with the turn 1 incident on lap 1. Some drivers will be carrying damage, and then it was Ben Denyer finishing in 20th place. Very competitive in race 1 as well, so a few drivers somewhat out of position, but it does mean that that is how the first race meeting of the season will leave the championship. Dan Mould, 92 points. A great championship lead, 11 points clear of Neil Butler in second place. Moraine Assert on 76 points, finishes in third, with Taria Flarton going into the next race meeting, rounds 3 and 4 at Brands Hatch, in fourth place. Then it's John Simons fifth, Bostian Fuse sixth, Jack Johns in 7th place, Craig Walters 8th, Shane Dunn in 9th, and Scott Malcolm a very impressive 10th place, drawing tied on points with the driver in front of Shane Dunn. Then we get back to yet another tie of 3 drivers, Chris Ems, Neil Stevenson and Christopher Smith, all tied on 58 points. So the championship is very, very close indeed, all up for grabs in just a week's time at Brands Hatch, using the Indy layout, so a very tight and twisty layout indeed, although a very quick lap time, so lots of action will sure to be had. And lots of undulation change there as well, so we'll see what that brings to the series towards the tail end of the order. David Christie and Andy Lovesey tied on points, tied on 11 points, so even as we get towards the bottom end of the order, there's still championship fights going on, so lots to look forward to as the championship will wear on. But the first race of the evening, the first race of the season, the first round of the season I should say, was as we expected, so close. Great stuff from all the drivers, and I can't wait for even more. My name's been Jack Werrell. I've run you through all of the action this evening. Thank you very much for joining me. Thank you very much for watching the first race meeting of the VBTCR Championship.